I was sitting in front of my computer last night at 1 a.m. watching another YouTube compilation of Family Guy funny moments when, as my internet began to lag and it gave me a few moments of respite from my dying laughter, I began to wonder how I was able to enjoy all of this. I don't mean I wondered how I could enjoy Family Guy funny moments. Oh no, I already wrote 3 30-minute-long thesis papers on why Seth MacFarlane is the funniest man alive, and you can expect to see those in the coming months. No, I was wondering how I was even able to watch all this stuff on my computer in the first place. How does a computer screen work? Screens are cool, okay? That's the point I'm trying to get at. Oh, and the second point I have to cover on is, despite the rather straightforward nature of the question, there are actually a few ways of answering it, as there have been many monitors produced over the past, half century or something, I guess. But they all tend to follow the same core concept, that being that they need to be able to show an image to its user and quickly swap it out for another image to give the illusion of motion. Sort of like a flipbook animation, but you can use it to watch other flipbook animations. So better. The way screens have gone about accomplishing this feat have had some creative attempts, including firing subatomic radiation at the back of a screen, have the light from the resulting collision produce a short-lived image. Believe it or not, that was actually one of the more popular ideas, but I'm more interested in how most modern screens work, and at least for now, that answer would be the LCD, or liquid crystal display. And that thing is also pretty cool, I guess. At the very least, cool enough to start learning Premiere for a quarter of a year. Now, in concept, these LCD monitors are actually quite simple and straightforward. There's only 4, arguably 3 steps the screen has to go through in order to display an image, starting, of course, with the fact that you need light, somehow. Unfortunately, since we're not firing electrons at high speeds into thick glass panels like real men, we have to find a different method for lighting up the monitors. I consider the possibility of harnessing the power of holy angelic light, but until we build a big enough bird trap, we have one of 3 options. We have reflective lighting, which just involves placing a mirror at the back of the monitor, so light goes in, light goes out, but so long as condition B is met, the process works. We have transmissive lighting, which involves creating our own light source and then diffusing the shit out of it so it's evenly lit throughout the entirety of the monitor. And then there's transreflective, which is a combination of both methods and is both reserved for centrists. I'm gonna look at the transmissive case because that's the one most computer screens tend to use. Sorry if you're a calculator enthusiast or something, I guess. Anyway, now we have this blinding white light coming out of the monitor, which is nice. Less nice is the fact that the light coming out has a bunch of random polarity, so naturally to fix this What? People don't know what polarity is? Fuck, the US is doomed. Right, how do I explain this? Okay, do you know what jump ropes are? Do you know when you shake one up and down it makes this cool little wavy pattern called a wave? Well, cool thing about light, it also sort of acts like that, but instead of being moved by your hands, it's moved by charged particles, and instead of a jump rope, it's an electric field. Well, I mean, there's also a second wave made in a magnetic field rotated about 90 degrees relative to the first one, but why should I have to worry about my accuracy? My credibility? Yeah, probably. Point is, just like you can make a wave and a jump rope go in any direction, like up and down or side to side, so can the same thing be done with a wave that makes up light, and this direction is called polarity. As you'd expect, light coming out of most things tend to go in different directions, but to get an LCD screen to work, we have to have all the light coming out of the screen go in one predictable direction. For this, we have polarizers, which, as the name suggests, have very divisive political opinions. Now, the way these things work is enough to make a whole video itself, but to, try and be short, polarizers are made up of several long, thin, transparent bars, all lined up in a parallel fashion to each other, so when it is struck with light with a parallel polarity, that light will get absorbed, and when it's struck with light with a perpendicular polarity, that light will get the bars to jiggle up and down and generate more light on the other side of the filter, because don't forget, you get light when you jiggle charges up and down, and in this case it would be the negatively charged electrons because they move more around than the protons because of— oh fuck, this script is getting too long again. Well then, now that we know what it means to polarize light, there's a cool trick you can try. If you take 2 polarizers, which you can get by gouging the filter out of your computer monitor or just getting some online, you spaz, you can try holding one polarizer still, placing the other one in front of it, and then rotating it. Now, assuming you weren't scammed, rotating the filter should slowly change the area the 2 filters overlap from crystal clear to pitch black or vice versa. Now, the reason why this works is, if you would so kindly remember, polarizers block light coming in at the wrong polarity, so if all the light going through the polarizer is all the same polarization, and that polarization happens to be wrong, all that light will get blocked. Okay, now, why am I telling you this? The namesake of the LCD comes from the liquid crystal, which is a material with molecules arranged in a repeated pattern, so a crystal in a liquid state of matter. So a liquid. It's not rocket science, technically. The cool thing about these crystals is, if we force them in between the 2 polarizers in this twisted pattern here, which from now on I'm going to represent using a PNG of a Pepsi crystal because I don't feel like animating that, they'll actually twist all the incoming light so its polarity will change and now pass through the second polarizer unaffected. Now, that's certainly cool and all, but the real interesting thing about these is what happens when you run an electric current through said crystal. It will cause the crystal to untwist itself, meaning it will no longer affect the polarity of the incoming light, meaning that the second polarizer will now absorb it. What I'm saying here is by making this polarizer sandwich right here and then running an electric charge through it, we essentially have a way of turning the monitor on and off. And by shrinking this machine down to the size of a singular pixel, we now have a way of turning a single pixel on or off, which is quite significant, I promise you. Now, while this factoid is in fact the most interesting thing you'll probably hear today and carry with you to the grave, there is still one crucial detail I have to I have to talk about something. While it is certainly all well and good to understand that polarizers prevent parallels and are open to orthogonals, we still have yet to understand what happens when a light beam enters with a diagonal polarity. Well, to make a long story and a long story made short, you can think of diagonally polarized light as having an up and down bit and a side to side bit, and a polarizer, depending on how it's oriented, is only going to let one of these bits through. However, thanks to our friend,
the Pythagorean theorem,
we know that both of these bits is going to be smaller than the original light ray it came from, so light coming out of that polarizer, if it enters diagonally, is just going to be dimmed. What I'm getting at here is that this entire process I've been describing has been building a machine that can dim an individual pixel. Okay? Cool. Now, color. Please note that nowhere in this video have I even said the word color. I think I'm not fact-checking that. So then, how does a screen get color? Well, the color of light depends on the wavelength, and by that I mean how far apart these two bumps are. This would seemingly suggest that the only way to get color out of a monitor would be to get the backlight to produce beams of light at varying wavelengths at the exact right point that we need it to, but that sounds really hard and expensive. Thankfully, there's a very clever and, more importantly, cheap way of being able to display every possible color on a computer screen. They lie. Plot twist, our eyes can only see 3 colors. Well, I guess I should be more clear. Our eyes are only attuned to seeing 3 colors. The backs of our eyes are covered in millions and millions of cells known as cones, of which there are 3 different varieties meant for one of 3 wavelengths of light, red, green, or blue. That's to say, if a beam of blue light were to enter our eyes, it would get picked up by the blue cone, but not so much by the red or green ones. But then again, considering our society doesn't look like it was made out of Lego, there is clearly something else at play here too. Say we have some other color, like purple, and while our eyes wouldn't have a unique purple cone that's able to pick it up, it will actually draw the attention of the red and blue cones, and when that happens, our brains are able to interpret that information as something being purple. What I'm getting at here is, if our vision is dependent on just 3 colors, why don't we try giving monitors only 3 colors to worry about too? Now, I know I insinuated before that this whole dimming mechanism I was talking about earlier was about the size of a pixel, but that's not quite right. It's actually about a third of that. All pixels are broken up into 3 different subpixels, which are colored either red, green, or blue. You might be seeing what I'm getting at here, but if our vision is ultimately dependent on the intensity at which our red, green, or blue light cones are activated, we might be able to simulate this on a monitor by increasing or decreasing the intensity of one of these subpixels. So while we can't turn a pixel itself purple, we could try simulating the color by going into the subpixels, turning the green one off, and then the blue and red one somewhat on. Now, as for visual range for each subpixel has 256 brightness settings, and since we have 3 of them, that means that each pixel can display about 16,777,216 different possible colors. And of these 16,777,216 different possible colors, a computer has to pick out the exact right one, direct it to exactly one out of over 2 million different possible pixels, and assuming you're running a standard computer screen, do this about 60 times every second. I can't even joke about that, that's just Jesus. But just to review, most computer screens would work by taking light, polarizing it, twisting it, running it through a color filter, polarizing it again, and finally you can enjoy the bliss that is peanut butter jelly time. However, as is the case in all scientific endeavors, we have to ask ourselves the question, how can I use this information to exploit the ignorance of others? Well, one such form of exploitation could come in the form of the privacy monitor, or the secret monitor, or the Mon-Hid-Tor. It essentially exploits the fact that an LCD screen requires 2 polarizers to function properly. If you were to take off the second polarizer, you wouldn't be dimming any of the light, so all the subpixels would be the same brightness, so the screen would just appear white. However, considering it doesn't matter where the second polarizer actually is, so long as it's somewhere between your vision and the computer screen, you can actually fashion a pair of sunglasses out of a polarizing screen, and so long as you're wearing them, you'll be able to see the screen just fine, whereas it will appear white to everyone else. Or if the second polarizer is oriented horizontally, you can actually use a pair of polarizing sunglasses, which, as the name would suggest, block out sun. It's perfect if you want to do some sick illegal activities, such as pirating anime. And the best part is, you wouldn't be arousing any suspicion whatsoever, save for the fact that there would be a grown adult in the middle of a public place staring gauntletly at a blank screen while wearing these homemade sunglasses or alternatively some sick-ass shades. Actually, while on the topic, remember that one infomercial with the spokesperson who went, "Hey, I'm John Bolton and these are tech glasses, tactical sunglasses. Look, normal sunglasses can't block glares. Weak! With tech glasses, spot the IRS before they get the first shot. It's there for nothing." Yeah, that guy. Well, a part of the commercial had him set up a monitor you can only look at while wearing his special sunglasses. The point was to advertise the sunglasses' light filtering technology, but all they really did was take out the last polarizing filter on the monitor, and their sunglasses, which are polarized, acted as a replacement. This whole segment just told us that they're selling polarized sunglasses. Oh my god. Moral of the story is this is just an ad for tech glasses, being sold somewhere, I think. Alright, I'm gonna watch Family Guy now, bye. It seems today, like all you see, is violence in movies and sex on TV. But where are those good old-fashioned values?